All right,
Roll 'em.
we're rolling. Nicole and Al
Okay.
D'Amelio, welcome to the Nicole Chenard Show.
I am happy to be here.
Are you just happy or are you wicked excited?
I'm wicked excited and I'm way outside of my comfort zone, which you'll hear more about when we talk about just being on a podcast in general.
Well,
So,
this is perfect. I had a feeling that this would help you grow because of all
okay.
people. So we first met several years ago by email, right?
By email from a referral from my primary care physician. My
Right.
problem was I was trying to gain weight because I exercise a lot and I was losing too much weight. So my primary care suggested that I speak with you. And I
And
was preparing for the upcoming trip to the Alps.
yes, and just like all of my favorite patients, the theme was, the reason why I really wanted to work with you is because it took you 3 years to reach out to me after your doctor told you to.
You'll never let me forget that.
So why did you reach out after that time?
Okay. Why did I? Well, I was preparing to climb the Duferspitze, aka the Monte Rosa, the highest mountain in Switzerland. And I
Mhm.
needed to be in really good shape. And nutrition is a big part of being in shape for me. Aside from the exercise, I like to eat. So I needed good nutritional advice. So that's why we connected.
What, are you Italian or something? You like to eat?
Yes, I am all Italian. And growing up, every dinner was like a banquet in my house. So I like to eat. My siblings, we all like to eat. And I still like to eat.
Well,
My
I wanna
grandfather
hear.
said, let me just say, my grandfather said there are two types of people, those that eat to live and those that live to eat. And he was in the live to eat. He lived to eat, as do I.
I want to hear more about that, but I also want you to talk about what you and I were discussing yesterday, which was how you ended up, becoming this world traveler, hiking the tallest mountains in the world. How the heck did that happen?
Okay, so where to begin? So, I always had a desire to see the world. And when I graduated from college, I backpacked across Europe with a couple of my roommates, and it was a really rewarding experience. I was a history minor in college, so it was really neat to visit places that I had studied: the Colosseum, the Tower of London, and the Eiffel Tower. Upon returning home, I just dove into my career and worked way too many hours for way too many years. But I always wanted to travel. I just never did. When I saw something interesting in a magazine, I would cut it out and put it in the travel folder. Or if I saw an interesting documentary on TV, I'd make a note, I'd put it in the travel folder. The travel folder kept getting bigger, but I wasn't going anywhere. Then I got diagnosed with cancer, and that was a real wake up call. And I said to myself, if I survive these treatments, I'm going to go to every place that's in this travel folder and then some. So not only did I empty the travel folder, but I haven't stopped. I've been to about 68 countries right now and counting.
68?
Yes. And my only
Wow.
break came from COVID.
Just as a reference, hopefully we can save some lives here. What was your boring job that you were doing that probably
Boring
paid a
job. So
lot? Probably paid a lot because obviously you could use the money for the trips, but you had
yeah,
no
so
life.
my background's in finance and accounting. So I've had a number of jobs in those
Exciting.
fields. Yeah, very exciting. Sitting at a computer, very boring. Working with numbers all day.
Ma-
Various positions as a manager, as controller, CFO, and then after that wake up call, I said I don't want to work 12 hours a day anymore. So
Mhm.
I just checked out in my mid 40s and just took about 5 years off and started doing a lot of traveling, a lot of volunteer work in Africa, and just doing things I never did before. Built a cabin up in the White Mountains, started doing some winter mountaineering. And then I said, okay, I need to start working again. I can't live this life forever. I was getting bored. I read every Robert Ludlum book there was to read. I was like, okay, now I got to work again. So then I started consulting as a part-time CFO for small companies, and that helped bring in income. And I've told all of my clients, I take 8 weeks off a year. And if you're not good with that, then this is a bad fit.
Mm.
But they all said, no, no. They saw the value that I brought to the table. They allowed. So when I was there, I'm working. But when I'm not there, you can't reach me. And I still am living that life. I still work a little bit now, a couple of hours a day, just to keep, this guy up here a little active.
Now, there are so many people I talk to who can't even set the teeniest little boundary of, I need these 5 minutes to myself. How did you learn how to set that boundary of, I need 8 weeks to myself?
Well, when I was sitting there in the oncology ward for 8 hours a day and weeks on end, you have a lot of downtime. Okay.
Mm.
And you just think about, what am I going to do with my life when this is over? So, the computer chip up here was just churning and churning and churning, thinking, what am I going to do when I get out of here? And when I was working, it would be so funny. My leg would just shake all day long. So if you're in a boardroom meeting with me and the room shaking, everybody knows it's me. Okay. When I took those 5 years off, my leg didn't move. It was unbelievable. Like, I was just so compressed, no stress whatsoever. And I was like, it just kind of evolved organically, just being in the mountains, no stress, no commitments. And I said, okay, this is my path. This is where I want to be.
Yeah, and this is a theme I'm noticing with you because when you first went into oncology, you saw people wasting away, emaciated, and you said, "I'm not gonna be like that." And then what did you do? "Because I love this, I fully
Okay.
support this."
So I said, I don't want to look like that. So we talked about me being Italian, and I like to eat. So I said I was going to eat. Now, one reason as a cancer patient, you don't want to eat, you feel like shit. You've got all these chemicals in your body, and you just don't want food. Well, I said, you know what? I'm going to find some foods that I can eat. I would eat a whole pizza at a sitting, just and it would absorb all the chemicals in my body. I would eat pasta for lunch every day. So it's a funny story. So, as I said, I was in the oncology ward 8 hours a day for a week at a time. So the first day they have the volunteers coming around serving the sandwiches, the ham and cheese, one slice of ham and cheese on the Wonder Bread. And I was like, I can't, I got to eat this. This isn't going to work.
No.
So my friends were all still in the area, and they said, "What can we do? What can we do?" I said, "You know what you can do? Bring me lunch." So prior to having cancer, I worked in Central Square, and I ate at this Italian restaurant every day for lunch. Florentina. It's no longer there. So my friends would stop in at Florentina's and pick me up a big bowl of chicken pasta and broccoli. And the owner says, is that for Al? Or he likes a Snapple iced tea with his lunch. And Al doesn't pay for lunch while he's in the hospital. So that whole summer, friends of mine would show up at the front desk of the oncology room award and say, we're here to visit Al Donadio. And after a while, the woman that rose like, who is this Al Donadio guy? Because I'd have 2 or 3 people showing up every day with a nice hot meal. That helped get me through that tough time in my life. And then the other thing I did was drink Gatorade. That was like the wonder drink for me
Yeah.
that summer. I'd drink it every meal, and it was just a psychological thing that helped me get through it as well.
Yeah, you need electrolytes to
And
wash all that pizza down.
exactly. And I gained 20 pounds on chemotherapy. 20 pounds. I weighed the most I ever weighed in my life. And
I've literally
the
never
opposite.
heard anyone else say that. And
That's
I worked at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute for 5 years, Granted, I was working with women who were post-treatment, but I never once heard someone say, "Gain 20 pounds by eating more." It was always the biggest struggle. So,
I just
that's
made
some
yeah, I
mental agility there.
yeah, people say I'm a stubborn Italian. Well, they'll use a different derogatory term, but they're right.
But you went against the grain and it worked, and that's the point,
Mhm.
really, is you can't just
Yeah,
let yourself waste away, literally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You can make the choice that that's not happening to me, and then it won't.
you're correct. That's exactly what was going through my mind.
And so what was the first big trip you went on to see the world?
First big trip. So let me take a step back to tell you how I got to be this wanderer.
Okay.
So I grew up in Everett, Mass, in a large Italian family, and Everett is a small city just outside Greater Boston. And at the time, there were 40,000 people living in 1.5 square miles. So I like to describe it as a concrete jungle with many triple deckers. And on every other street corner, there was either a sub shop, a packy, which is a packaged goods store for those of you who are not from the Boston area, or a bar room. That's Everett. So one day when I was about four, and my grandparents also lived in Everett. So one day on the other side of the city. So one day when I was about 4 years old, I was playing by myself in my tiny backyard. And I wanted to go visit my dad, who was doing some work over my grandparents' house. Now, I knew how to get there because we used to walk to church on Sunday. So I kind of knew the route. And you have to cross Broadway, which is the busiest street in Everett. So I walk over there. I show up at my grandmother's house. And my dad goes, "Where's your mother?" I said, "Oh, she's home." I said, "I walked over here all by myself and I didn't get hit by any cars." So he just lost it. Gave me a big hug, called my mother and said, "Do you know where your son is?" "Yeah, he's in the backyard." "No, no, he's here." And my mother's like, "What?" I think from that early age, I became a wanderer.
You're an explorer.
Explorer, yeah. I do read a lot of books on the explorers. The old explorers, they were real explorers.
Well, how else would we have
Yeah.
gotten to America if some kid didn't say, "I wanna cross the street without my mom.
Yeah,
I wanna
true.
cross
Okay.
an
Yeah,
ocean
modern day.
without my mom."
Yeah, yeah. So my first big trip, so like I said, I always wanted to do things, but I just never did. But it was going to Peru to see Machu Picchu. That's what I
Ah.
really wanted to see. That's the first thing I did. And when I saw it, it was just spectacular. Just being in the mountains. I said, you know what? I need to be in the mountains. That's where I want to be. So I started taking trips to the mountains. I would long treks to um, Nepal, Kazakhstan, Kamchatka. And those trips led to me going to climb 4,000-meter peaks in the Alps in Morocco. And that led to climbing 5,000-meter volcanoes in South America, which led to climbing 6,000-meter peaks in Nepal. So I like to get way outside my comfort zone and push the boundaries. And you know, I'm a type A personality who likes to be in control. When I'm on these trips, I am way outside of my comfort zone. And I'm relying on an experienced guide to basically take care of me and lead the way. So I got to give up that control, which I do, and let them lead.
And what kind of benefit do you get from giving up that control?
It's so rewarding up here. It's just, I got nothing to worry about. Well, I do have things to worry about, but I can focus on me getting to my objective as opposed to me thinking about which route we're going to take and, you know, what time we're getting up and when am I eating. Those decisions are already made. I just
Mm.
have to worry about me physically and mentally getting to reaching my objective.
So would you say you're type A 10 months of the year and you give up control for 2 months? Am I
Yeah,
being type
probably.
A?
Yeah,
There's a lot of type A.
probably. Yeah, I'm probably less type A as I'm getting older. But actually, I should say, I like being in control.
I appreciate your
I
honesty.
live in a well, I live in a log cabin on 53 acres, completely off the grid with solar panels and a backup generator. So I guess you could say I still like to have my control.
So there's, you know, but most people wouldn't ever do that. So I just find it fascinating. But I think you started building up that resiliency and that desire for that lack of control when you were 4 years old. Like there was, I forget where I heard this. It might have been a podcast or I read something, but that adaptability, resiliency, grit that some people have and most people don't. It starts the younger you start it, the more you can achieve later, just like investing in a retirement account, that compound interest. So if someone starts trying to take risks like climbing, Matterhorn all of a sudden out of nowhere when they're 65, it's going to be really different. It's going to be a lot more challenging for them to lose control versus if they started when they're 45 because of that compound interest of grit that builds up.
So I started around 40. I had cancer at 39, started these trips in 41 or so, something like that.
I just want
So
to
that's when I started.
emphasize you just said I started when I was 40 because most people think 40 is when your life ends.
No, that's when life began. Well, that's when life began. It was my life before cancer and my life after cancer. I wouldn't wish my cancer upon my worst enemy, but I am so glad I went through it because it just changed my whole perspective and outlook in life. I never would have went through the travel folder if I didn't have that cancer. I'd still be working.
That would be so sad. Then we wouldn't be talking about all the crazy stuff you've
I
done.
never would have met you, and I wouldn't be here right now, way outside my comfort zone, being filmed.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this. So I think my last podcast episode was recorded in May. And since then, I have not felt inspired to record another one. I mean, I can talk about nutrition all day, but if someone else is already talking about it, I find it to be boring. So you emailed me, was it last week? No, it was several weeks ago. I read it last week. Okay.
Okay.
And because whenever you email me about your trips, I pin it to the top because I know it's going to be long and I know I want to look at all the pictures. So I wait until I don't want to rush through it. So you sent it a
Okay.
couple weeks ago. I think I read it last week and just immediately I was like, this is my next podcast episode. I really hope he
Okay.
agrees to do this.
And
So
I said, okay.
I glanced at it while I was working. I was with some people and I pulled up the map to where you went on your last hike in Pakistan. And I was like, what in the world is Al doing? What did he just went to Pakistan and had the best time? Nobody does that. I mean, a couple of people do that, but I was like, I haven't heard of anyone doing that recently, let alone somebody I know who's not in the military, who's a civilian. And so it, I looked at your pictures and everyone looks so happy. And so I thought to myself, I just want Al to read this email out loud because it's so incredible. Will you do something like that for me?
And I said, are you sure you want me to read the whole thing? And you said, just let it all out there. So if you want me to start reading my email, I will.
Do it.
Okay. So at the end of all my trip, I send out my mini travel journal with a link to my photos to a number of folks, friends and family, people I've met on previous trips, et cetera, et cetera. So I started out with, hello, friends, family, and fellow travelers. I've just returned from my most recent adventure to Pakistan, where I trekked for 16 days to K2 base camp. This has been a dream destination for me for many, many years. In the past, I had always hesitated about booking this trip due to the political situation there and the safety concerns. Early this year, I said to myself that it won't be getting any less safe anytime soon there. After viewing a video from a buddy of mine who went on the same trip last year, I booked the trip. Shortly after paying my deposit, India and Pakistan started bombing each other.
Yeah, no big deal.
Okay. I said, okay, it was bad timing that I decided to go this year. However, they quickly agreed to a ceasefire and the bombing stopped. Okay, one bullet dodged. Then Israel and Iran started bombing each other. More bad timing. My connection through Dubai was fairly close to the action, and I was not hopeful about this trip running. I was just keeping my fingers crossed that we dropped the bunker buster bombs before I left the country. And hopefully that would put an end to the hostilities. Well, about a week or so before I was due to depart, they dropped the bombs. There was a small retaliation, and then the hostilities stopped. Another bullet dodged, and it looked like I just might get to K2 after all. I arrived in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, at 2 in the morning to a very hot and humid climate. There must have been 1,000 people in the arrivals hall, all locals waiting for their relatives to arrive for the religious festival. Now, I don't see anybody with my name who's supposed to pick me up because there's 1,000 people everywhere. I walked through everyone, and then the taxi drivers all want to give me a ride somewhere. I said, no. I said, where's the domestic terminal? So they took me upstairs, and I knew I was going to meet the rest of the group at the visitors line. I said, okay, this is the right place, I said. So I got my phone out. I had service, and I called the tour leader, who's not in Islamabad. He's in Skardu, and it's 2 in the morning, and he picked up right away. I said, this is Albert Donadio. I'm supposed to be on the trip. No one picked me up, et cetera, et cetera. He called his local guy. They quickly came and got me, brought me to a semi-air conditioned room where we awaited the rest of the folks to arrive on later flights. So that worked out. So the Karakoram Range has some of the most wild and dramatic landscapes found on Earth. There were times when I thought I was on another planet. The views of this mountain range from the flight from Islamabad to Skardu was some of the best mountain views that I've ever seen, and that includes Nepal. We flew right next to Nanga Parbat, which is one of the 5 8,000-meter peaks located in Pakistan. Now, summer's the trekking season in Pakistan versus in Nepal, it's spring and the fall. So therefore, we were going to be hiking with numerous 90-degree hot, sunny days that really beat the hell out of you, especially at higher elevations. On top of that, it was windy and dry. We actually did not mind the few rainy days because it provided a welcome relief from the heat. Now, the most dangerous part of the trip was the 5 to 7 hour drive from Skardu to Ascoli, where we would begin the trek. We were on a real road for a while, a couple hours, and then we passed a few villages along the way. But then after the road ended, we were on a dirt track with numerous mountain switchbacks where every turn had to be negotiated with just the right amount of space, or we're talking 1,000-foot drop-offs into this raging river with no expectation of survival whatsoever. I was sitting right up front for a bird's eye view. At some point, the roads were washed out. We had to get out of the vehicle to walk around so that the Jeeps could negotiate. It was actually, we got to one place where the road had washed away. We had to get out, unload all the Jeeps, walk across the footbridge, and then load up on another set of Jeeps to continue the journey. I did enjoy it, though. Once we arrived in Ascoli, we met the remainder of the support staff, the local guides, cooks, porters, and mule attendants. They were all fantastic, extremely hardworking, and pleasant to be around. Now, Pakistan is a very poor country, and the terrain is very unforgiving. It's not like Nepal where you're walking through various villages, stopping along the way for a bite to eat in a tea house. Ascoli was the last stop. There were a few army outposts along the route, which consisted of a dome tent and plenty of fuel cans. There was some well-marked, I'll call them campsites. Some of them had caretakers. Some of them had toilets. There were no showers. We took all of our provisions, 16 days worth of food, tents, etc., for the trek. The first couple of days were hot, sunny, and dusty. We walked along this river and were surrounded by surreal looking landscapes. We then crossed the Baltoro Glacier, and from now on, we would be walking on a boulder-strewn glacier. It was a constant pounding on your legs and ankles. And speaking of ankles, last year I had to leave a mountaineering trip in the Swiss Alps because my ankle just gave out. I've had numerous injections over the years in my one ankle, surgery on that ankle to remove bone spurs, burrs, and arthritis. So every day I go out for a walk, it's not without some degree of pain. But this trip, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I thought my big mountaineering days were over. My last resort was to try a bone marrow aspirate concentrate, BMAC procedure, which involves harvesting bone marrow, concentrating the stem cells in growth factors, and injecting it into my ankle. There's no guarantee it's going to work. Well, it worked, at least for this trip. My ankle was fine, with the exception of the last day or so. It took a pounding, but the pain was minimal. So I really need to send my doctor a bouquet of roses for that one. The trekking each day was long and arduous, but we were rewarded with outstanding views at every turn. At the end of each day, we arrived at our campsites, which also had spectacular views. The meals each day were without doubt the best meals I've ever eaten on the trek. Normally on trek, you eat porridge for breakfast. I hate porridge. Now they did serve porridge, and one guy, he just ate it all because he loved it. We had omelets every day for 16 days with no replenishing of provisions. We had pancakes. We had peanut butter and honey. So I had plenty of fuel in the morning to start the day. Lunchtime sometimes would be a sit-down dinner lunch, where it'd be mostly always rice and some form of dal, which is the local lentils. So there's plenty of protein and carbs and snacks and this and that.
And fiber. Yeah.
A lot of
Slow
fiber,
digesting carbs. Yeah, that's great.
Yes. But the amount of food and variety of food each night was unbelievable. I mean, there were numerous dishes that they just kept bringing. Like, you didn't know when it was going to stop. He'd show up with the rice. Then he'd show up with curried vegetables. Then he'd show up with a salad, which was cucumbers, onions, and tomatoes. Then they'd show up with some type of chicken or some more dal or something. The food just kept coming and coming. And dessert every night, which I never eat at home, but on trek, I eat everything. He made creme brulee, and it was delicious. Yes,
that
creme
would
brulee
sell me on that trip.
Trek. That was just amazing.
Flambe stick with him and everything?
Whatever it was just like,
wow.
Yes, it was delicious. So when you read about this trek going to K2 base camp, the literature states that trekking to the campsite at Concordia, you will pass through some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world. The trail is surrounded on all sides by several of the world's highest mountains: K2, Broad Peak, Baltoro Cangre, Troglisa, and Gasherbrum 4. Well, that may be true, but we walked there in a cloudy day, no views. Here I am camping at Concordia, where I'm supposed to be looking at K2, and all I see are clouds. The next day, we trek up to Broad Peak Base Camp in cloudy, overcast weather. Once again, I'm supposed to be looking at K2 the whole walk, but I'm not looking at K2 because all I see is clouds. I'm thinking to myself, I've come all this way and I'm not going to see K2. I mean, this is a one and done trek for me. I'm not coming back here. I'm not putting my body through this again.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I said, there's no way. So while we're setting up camp at Broad Peak, you could see the clouds, but you couldn't really see K2. The guide said, don't worry, the sun's coming out tomorrow. I was like, okay, okay. So
I'm gonna
by
attempt
1:30,
I'm just interrupting for a sec because I'm gonna attempt to show the whoever's watching, some people are watching and some people are gonna be listening, where in the world you're talking about, just in case they don't know.
okay,
Okay, so this is what Elle's
they
talking about. So we grew up over here. Oh, there's all my maps. And then Al went all the way over here.
through
K2
Dubai.
to Dubai.
So
So you
started,
went.
yeah, United Arab Emirates, and then on to
So
Pakistan.
yep, so totally different
Keep going down.
place.
Yeah, here we go. K2 base camp.
You mentioned you've already started talking about the this was the Jeep.
That was one of the Jeeps. Yeah, so that's Skydio where we flew into. And
Yeah.
then if you scroll down, yeah, that was from the plane. The first two were taken from the plane. And that's why it was just
No.
jaw dropping seeing that that's Nanga Parbat, that second photo. Now scroll over here. Go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is from the plane and then this is the airport.
Yeah, the local airport in Skardu where we fly into.
I mean, yeah, this is like nothing most people have ever seen before. These mountains are incredible.
So put your cursor all the way over to the right, or my right, your left, and then you can scroll down. No,
That's right?
yeah, because this is
Yeah,
the
I
road now. This is
love
just
it.
some of the road. That was the treacherous road. That was the
Yeah,
washed out
yeah.
bridge.
And
And
this
now this is Ascoli, where we're starting to walk.
this donkey's
So
taking a nap.
he just arrived and he was getting all the sweat off of him. So he was rolling
Yeah.
around in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah, look at this gourmet setup here.
At the dining tent, and that's my tent, and that's just an idea of what some of the scenery was on the first couple of days. You see dead donkeys right by the side of the road. Where they drop, you leave them.
Yeah,
You
go
see
back into the
cows
earth.
being let up, chickens. We had fresh
Mhm.
chicken. They cut his throat right there. They brought that steer fed quite a few people, and here we are getting to the Baltura Glacier, so it's still quite sunny and quite hot at this time
Yeah.
of the trek.
Look at all these happy people. Are these people you hiked with?
That's my group, yes. The first guy, he's the caretaker of that particular campsite,
Okay.
and the rest of them are all the people I traveled with.
Love it, love it. Okay, so where are we in your story?
All right,
Oh,
so I get up at actually scroll down till you get to that one night shot of K2. Well, that's Concordia there. Okay, so here's where we are in the story.
Tang.
Okay, yeah. So the one
This is the
the
guy
one,
who liked all the porridge.
yeah, he liked that. He loved it. So I get up at 1:30 in the morning at Broad Peak Base Camp. For one, I got to empty my pee bottle because it's full, and I want to pee outside. Well, it was a clear night, and there was K2 illuminated against under the stars. I quickly retrieved my phone from my tent and took the first photo of K2.
This one.
That's the first shot I get to take of K2. Okay, so that's at 1:30 in the morning.
Okay, so
So
it's light out.
it was under the stars. It was 1:30 in the morning. There was the clouds had finally cleared. It was a perfect night. And that's the first shot anyone in our group got of K2. Seeing K2 for the first time, for me, is like seeing a woman's breast for the first time. You've dreamt about it for years. You've seen photos in magazines. You have an idea of what they look like, but when you see them for the first time, it's really spectacular. So I was not disappointed. We awoke to a beautiful, clear day, and we were rewarded with several days of blue skies and sunshine. The walk up the glacier that morning is one of the best walks of my life. We were staring at K2 the entire time. Before visiting base camp, we took a detour to the Gilkey Memorial. This is a memorial for those who have died while climbing K2. and is named after Art Gilkey, who died on the mountain in 1953 during an American expedition. Memorial is a stone cairn covered with metal plaques inscribed with details about the dead climbers. We then headed over to K2 Base Camp for lunch. The walk back to Concordia offers us the amazing views that we had missed on the cloudy day. We had a nice rest day at Concordia to relax and enjoy the sunshine and views. We were sad to hear that there was a death on K2 the day we were there. A porter was killed, and our porters made a makeshift cross to him at the campsite. After our rest day, it was time for the return trek to Ascoli. Unfortunate for me, I came down with a stomach bug, which had affected a couple of other folks earlier on the trip. For 2+ days, I could not eat a thing, but still had to walk 8 hours in the 90-degree weather. Every time I took a drink, I'd have to run behind a rock because I had diarrhea. It was awful. I've
Oh,
never been sick like that on a trip. And those were not pleasant days for me. One of my fellow trekkers, Bruce, he walked with me the whole time. He was coaching me. He was motivating me. He carried my water bottles. It had helped, but I was dead man walking for those days. I just don't know how to do it, but I had to do it. You got to get there. It was a huge relief for us to finally reach Ascoli because the trek was over. Or was it? Upon arrival, we were notified that the bridge we were due to cross the next day had collapsed.
oh,
Luckily, nobody was on it. Nobody was on it, and there were no injuries. Our new plan was to drive for an hour, then hike for 2.5 hours over another mountain pass, and then get on the road for 6 hours. Psychologically, it was a big blow. Once you have it in your head that the trek's over, you're done. You're done walking. The trip's over. Now, you have to get ready to walk again. So you're really going to motivate yourself to walk again.
yeah.
The good news is at least my stomach was better. I could eat, and we were all, it would be no problem. Now, at the end of all my trips, I like to go visit a local barber. I don't shave anything, head or face, on trips. So after 3 weeks, I look terrible. Okay. I win the world's ugliest beard contest all the time. And
I know there's a
the
picture of this, so I'm looking for
yeah,
it.
and barbers all over the world, they have so much pride in their profession. And this guy, he like all of them, does such a phenomenal job. I mean, here I'm in Pakistan, and this guy's got a straight edge to my throat. You know, you just hope he's friendly.
Yeah, yeah, that's some
Yeah,
courage. Yeah, the whole
yeah,
trip
you just
took a lot of courage, but that one moment could have been it.
yeah. So it was great folks to travel with. The scenery is just some of the best I've ever seen in the world. And I'm really excited that I finally got to visit the Karakoram.
Yeah,
And that's what I call my blog. There we go. There's the picture.
incredible. Yeah,
There's the beard.
yeah.
Me and the other guy. Yeah.
Everyone looks so happy despite, all the challenges, or maybe it's because
It was yeah, the support staff are always happy. I mean, they were just fun to be around. They all didn't speak English, but they were still very happy all the time. And you encountered friendly people everywhere you went. And our group was very happy, very experienced group. They'd all been to Nepal several times, and this was a big trip for all of us.
and so, the average American probably never even thinks about ever going to this part of the world. How do you make the connection to make that happen when it's not as American friendly as one would think, or are we totally wrong?
No. So two things. So the companies that I travel with are UK-based companies. So in many cases, I'm the only American. So everybody else on this trip is from the UK.
Aha.
Okay. So you're right. Of all the groups I met on the trip, I only met one other American group. There were a lot of Poles, Dutch groups, Germans, English, Spanish, only one other American group. And you're right. Pakistan does have a bad reputation because of the political instability. but the people are wonderful. I
Mm.
mean, they're very friendly. And the last day we did a tour of Islamabad, guided tour, and just walking around. And there were many locals who they'd ask, are you American? So I was with one of the other guys on the troop. I said, yeah, I'm American. He's British. I'm the American. And they wanted to take a picture of me and get in a picture with me because I was an American, including one woman with her 4 little kids. Can I take a picture with my kids? Of course, of course. I got on my knees and surrounded the kids. So I got
So
a. It was a.
you're out there representing our entire country.
In a way, I do look at it like that. I'm trying to be an ambassador so that people around the world don't have a negative impression of all of Americans. I try to paint a positive picture.
That has such a strong ripple effect.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I mean, I'm very humble on these trips. I, I eat what the locals eat. I don't impose any of my values on anyone. I'm in your country. I'm going to obey your rules and your customs and eat your food
Mm.
and never complain about anything. Even when I have diarrhea and have to go on a glacier, I'm not going to complain about it because I'm not sitting at home on my computer during doing boring things.
It's so refreshing to hear you say that because, and like we were talking about yesterday, I grew up in a really nice town in Massachusetts, Needham, Mass. Every time I go back, I'm like, oh yeah, it's nicer than I thought it was. But I always wanted to get out because of several reasons. I always wanted to travel the world too. But I had this sense of this isn't reality and I want to know who I am in a completely different part of the world. And I happen to move to the border of Mexico and Texas, which I never had thought about previously in my life. I had been to Austin a few times, but the border is like its own separate country. It's neither Texas nor Mexico, and you almost need a passport to go there and get out of there. I drove down from Boston, and after I got to Houston, I stayed with a friend and I had a friend driving with me. After that, it was 7 hours driving by myself through pretty much nothing, like pure desert, a couple of gas stations. And I'm now realizing I'm a woman and you're a man as as this story comes up. So I think of things very differently. But at one of the gas stations on my way down to McAllen, Texas, somewhere between Houston and McAllen, I was driving my Jeep at the time that had Boston Bruins plates. So clearly I wasn't from there and it was packed with all my stuff. And this guy in the gas station said, "Are you alone?" And I said, "No," knowing full well that I was. And he
Mhm.
said, "Where are you from? Chicago?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm from here." It hit me in the moment that I had no protection. I was literally in the middle of nowhere, 2 hours in every direction. There was nothing, nothing but dust bunnies, not even palm trees at that point. And I was like, okay, if this guy and the guy at the register are, in on something together, I'm totally screwed. I didn't even have mace at that point. In that moment, I realized why pretty much everyone in Texas has a gun because there's so many places where you're alone, you're not protected, and you don't have cell phone service. I waited because I knew that guy was watching me. I knew I was in an unfamiliar place, and I waited until I saw his truck leave, which felt like an hour, which would have been a really long time, especially with that drive. But I knew I had to wait, and I will never forget that because I had never been asked, "Are you alone?" before in a place where I had never been, where I didn't know
Mhm.
anybody. And so I'm realizing now the female perspective of not only are we taught to be afraid of people all the time, especially in places we've never been, but how would a woman potentially go on a trip like this and how would it be different? I did live on the border of Mexico for a year and it was scary. It was a totally different climate, different people. I didn't know anybody. I was volunteering for AmeriCorps and made good friends pretty much immediately, but a lot of them had lived in Texas before or were from Texas or had gone on trips more so than I had in unfamiliar places. And I was 20. So I guess I one-upped you there because I did it 25 years before you did in terms of age.
I backpacked across Europe when I was 21.
Oh, right,
So,
right, right.
okay,
Okay.
get me. Okay.
I went to college when I was 17, and this was right after college or a year after I graduated. But when you went backpacking in Europe, did you go with people you knew?
Yeah, it was after I graduated from college, and I was with two buddies. Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah. So I went
so I
totally by
wasn't alone,
myself. I
which
wanna
is big. Yeah, it's
yeah. I wanna say this because it's something that I don't know if I was embarrassed about it, but when I was driving down from Boston to deep South Texas, I was with a friend, and when we got to Virginia, I had a complete meltdown, and I was like, "I think we should go back. I think this is a good time to go back because I really haven't been south of here that much before. The South in itself is like a different country, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I think we should just turn around tomorrow and go back up to Boston." Probably a couple hours of meltdown was at the beach in Virginia, just trying to decide if I was making the worst decision ever, if I could just undo this commitment I had made and go back. And then I was like, what am I going back to? It's only a year that I've made a commitment to. Anyone can do anything for a year. If I really want to leave, I can go back. And so I got through that struggle, which was not easy. I've gone through several moments like that in my life where I feel like it was really pivotal, where you make the decision to grow versus go back and do what you know how to do and have always done. Because I knew at that point in my life that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten, and I was not satisfied. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to know what it was like to be on my own and figure out everything by myself. And I made no money in that job. The point of the job is to learn what it's like to be in the underserved population that you're serving at the poverty level and to figure out how to get food stamps and figure out how to live on that teeny tiny budget. I made like $2 an hour at that job because it was a volunteer job. It was AmeriCorps Volunteer in Service to America, AmeriCorps Vista. And when I came back to Needham, I was so sad and so reverse culture shocked that I didn't know how to talk to
Mhm.
anyone, and when I heard anyone complain about anything, like, "Oh, they gave me the wrong coffee," or just something, that you hear every day, I would just stop and my jaw would drop and I'd go, "But we have sidewalks here. We have sidewalks that we can walk on. Why are you complaining about coffee?" And it gave me this totally different perspective, and I was so much happier with no money, with people who appreciated things.
So similarly, when I took those 5 years off, I went to Africa for a month and was a volunteer teacher and taught English and math to primary school kids. I went 4 times, 1 month at a time. So I went over the course of 4 years, I took 4 trips. First year to Kenya, and then 3 years to South Africa, where I lived in a one-room rendezvous. There's no running water. There's a long drop for a toilet, taking a bucket bath every night in one of those big laundry baskets. That was my one daily bath. There's no electricity in the village. And I'm teaching kids every day. Initially I couldn't pronounce any of their names and they were very shy. And then that was the first year. And by the end of my last year, they were all fighting over who was going to carry my backpack back to my rendezvous. And they were offering me their lunch. It was the most humbling and rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. Similar to you, whenever every year after I would come back, I couldn't deal with anything here. I would just go up to my cabin in the mountains and just kind of make the transition from Africa to at least being back in the States. Then I could go back to Boston, but it took a while in that transition. And the same thing about the complaints. I have zero tolerance and patience for anybody that can complain about anything based
Mhm.
on what we have here in this country compared to 90% of the people in the world. And I'm not exaggerating that number. I think having been to 68 countries, I have a pretty good idea of how people live and what they have and don't have. I mean, we have running water. We take that for granted. We
Yeah.
have heat, house. We take that for granted. I mean, share those sentiments with you on that front.
Yeah, we have electricity, we have communications, we have internet, we have entertainment. It
But it's
is
funny
yeah.
as far as communications, you see this? Everybody has one of these all over the world. The guides, the porters in Pakistan all had cell phones.
No way? Wait, did they have anything else? Did
Yeah,
they have walkie-talkies too? Or do they just have really good s
talkies. We had satellite phones. A guide did, but the local people all had cell phones. All our guides, porters, and in on the villages that communicate. See, I like to go on these trips to disconnect completely, but some people still they feel a need. They need to be in touch back home. They need to call home. They need to. My phone that gets turned off and goes in the pack for the trip. But some people, I thought Pakistan would be different. Oh, there's no service out there, and you had to buy a local SIM card if you
Mhm.
wanted service. And the army controlled the connection, so it was only available like 1 or 2 hours a night and this and that. But some of the people on my trip, they just had to be able to communicate. Now, of course, it freaks my mother up, pisses my mother off because I don't call her for 3 weeks and she doesn't know whether I'm alive or dead.
Valid.
There's no service, I tell her. As soon as I get to a city, I call home. I'm alive. Okay.
I'm one of probably the last people generationally who remembers what it's like to not know if if someone is somewhere. I grew up with landline phones before cell phones. My nieces don't know what that's like, and that hurts my brain a little bit, but I try to teach them little things like, "Hey, why don't you pay attention right now?" Or you could get hit with a ball and get a concussion, or like, why don't you just try going without the phone for a little bit? And they're good. They affect our brains. We're addicted to them because there's a dopamine reaction to checking notifications and actually the colors on your phone, you can make it black and white so it's less addicting. But how can people I mean, this is an epidemic officially, right? The phones. How can people choose to not use them? I guess you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
So I was telling my nephew last month about my backpacking trip to Europe. And I was telling him that, yeah, I called mom, my mother, his grandmother, from a payphone in the Rome train station, putting tokens, lira tokens,
Mhm.
into a payphone to call America. There was no Airbnbs. You had your Europe on $10, and that's where you stayed. You went through the book, you looked at the map, where it found the house. Can we, you have a room for us? And he was just blown away. He goes, when he went to Europe, he's texting his mother every day. He's calling his mother. He's got Airbnbs. He just couldn't get his arms around like how we did things back then
Yeah,
without the phone.
exactly. I went to Italy when I was 14 with my cousin and my aunt, and we had a layover in Amsterdam. And when we got to Amsterdam, so this was 2001, when we got to Amsterdam, they said all of Italy is on strike, so you can't go there. And luckily, my aunt was there because I knew some Spanish, but I didn't speak any Italian. We had no way of checking the news. Nobody had a cell phone. I brought a disposable camera from CVS or wherever. We had to use payphones, and nobody even used email, not to check things anyway, not to check things
Right.
quickly. And so she was trying to find out, well, how long? Luckily, she had grown up in Europe, so that was helpful. But she was like, well, how long is this strike going on? And they were like, we don't know, probably 24 hours. So we went around Amsterdam for as long as we could, going to pastry shops, trying not to get hit by the train because they were coming in all directions. And I think we put our stuff in a locker. And then after 10 hours or something, they were like, okay, now Italy's off strike. All of the transportation is now functioning again. Now you could go. As an American, you don't realize, oh, a whole country can just shut down its transportation unless you go do that thing and go to that place. So lots of learning
Right. Exactly.
experiences.
Hmm.
What's
No,
next?
what's next? Well, in 3 weeks, I'm going to Turkey
Oh, yeah.
for my first mountain biking trip to an area called Cappadocia, which has these rock cave dwellings where people used to live years
Mm,
ago to escape religious persecution. So I do a lot of mountain biking here. As soon as I hang up with you, I'm going to go for a mountain biking ride. But I've
good.
never gone on a mountain biking trip yet. Mostly been trekking or mountain climbing. So I'm looking forward to it. Never been to Turkey.
Well, I'm excited to read about it and see your pictures and hear about it. And are you gonna bring Snickers bars and pizza, or what are you gonna pack for fuel?
Yeah, good. I'm glad you brought Snickers bars up. We didn't mention that is my candy bar of choice when I'm trekking. But when
Yeah,
I go to a hot climate, I don't bring Snickers bars. They melt. They
right.
did give us some Snickers bars in Pakistan, though, and you had to eat them
Really?
quickly or they would have melted.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did have
They knew
Snickers
you were
bars.
coming.
They knew I was coming. I was so excited.
Well, that's good. You get some nuts in there with the quick sugars, healthy
Yeah,
fats, and protein. Thanks so much,
yeah.
Al.
I'm happy to do this.
The sound quality, I'll explain to the listeners, is not 100% because Al's up in the mountains, but it's great, and I'm really glad I got you out of your comfort zone today. More to come.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. We'll chat soon.
All right, bye, Al. See you soon.
Bye bye.